Matt, I know you've had sort of this storied career of being like somebody who is on almost an Olympic track, right? In the pommel horse, right? You were a gymnast in college. I think
my long ago.
Yeah, well, I was excited. I was blown away actually to see you at the Olympics this year.
Yeah, it was me. That was there. Yeah,
specifically in the opening ceremony. I didn't recognize you at first because you had all that blue body paint on. But once I found out that was you, I was like, "Oh man, Matt, that's so cool! You finally made it."
I didn't see the opening ceremony, but I did see a picture of that blue guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting opening from what I heard. Though I will say there's like that metal band that played and their performance was dope. That was really cool. I like that. Never heard of them before, but I thought that was pretty awesome. But that's about all I saw.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping for some like the French are big into like electronic music. I was hoping to see like some Daft Punk or Justice or something. But you know, I'm down with the heavy metal. That was dope.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Interesting. The Olympics. Well, I did watch a little bit of the pommel horse stuff, and sometimes I watch this stuff and I'm like, who invented these things? It's like a log and somebody's like breakdancing on a log, essentially. Like
pretty much. Like you watch the balance beam, you're like, what? Like it's basically floor, but harder. Like why? Yeah. Why do you do this to yourself? Yeah, no, I hear you.
And then the rings, they're just like, what if you just hanged on to rings and did like flips and stuff? Those guys are yoked. Oh my God.
Oh yeah. Yep.
There's like an extra torso on top of their torsos. There's just
literally
like so much
the reason
muscle.
why gymnasts look the way that they look, the all-arounders and the big guys, is literally because of that one event. No other event requires that kind of physicality.
Yeah. Yeah. And then also some of that, like the dudes that do the rings and stuff, the difference between their upper body and their lower body is crazy. They look like Big Bird or something. They're just like,
well, it's because for ring specialists, you don't need your lower body at all.
Yeah.
So it actually just makes it harder. So a lot of the guys just like they'll exercise their legs, but it's not the priority. So you're right. They're massive, like torsos, just big muscly torsos and then little legs.
It's pretty wild to watch, man. But yeah, I'm trying to follow it. The Olympics, you know, every now and then I'm like, oh, ping pong is on or something. You know, you tune in and watch that sport that nobody watches until like the 4 year. It's every 4 years or something.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. And then we all see who's the best ping pong and judo person in the world.
Yep.
And then
I think I love the idea of it. We were talking before we went live how I think it's silly that it's just capitalism at this point, though. It's like, hey, it's a world event. Let's watch it. Oh, you have to subscribe. You have to be. It's just like, okay, all right.
Yeah, especially when it's like when the countries that host it obviously are putting tons of like their country's revenue, which is essentially tax dollars or however your country is taxing the economy, into this event. And it's like you're trying to showcase the greatness of your country to a degree. And then it's like, yeah, that should be seen by the world. But then it's sort of not. I wonder if
behind the paywall, baby.
Well, I wonder if weren't the original Olympic Games like in Greece or something? I wonder if those were like if you had to pay a ticket to go to them or if it was like
I have no idea. Would that even be relevant by today's standard? They didn't pay tickets back then. Yeah. Why are we paying tickets now?
Thousands of years ago.
Yeah. That's funny.
Well, I've got you know what? This is a perfect segue into skill-based matchmaking.
Yes.
Yes. I don't
know.
The
debate rises again from the ashes every couple of months.
Did you see the article on...
I actually read it. I went down and actually read
all 25 pages of the document.
I didn't read all 25 pages, but I read a good portion. And yeah,
it's so for people who don't know what we're talking about, SBMM, skill-based matchmaking, a term that needs its own acronym now, has been debated for I don't know the last 10 years of competitive.
I'd say it's been only really the last like 5 years that people have really started debating.
Okay. If you're super nerdy, maybe a little earlier. I actually don't know when it first became a thing, to be honest, but sometime around then. Call of Duty is probably the most notorious game for implementing a skill-based matchmaking system, which means when you go online and you play against other players, it tries to match you against people of equal skill, which on the surface sounds like a nice thing to do, but when you get into the weeds of it, it could be argued that potentially it creates a too much of a catered environment and doesn't give everyone the experience that they were used to having before a skill-based matchmaking system came into play. This has been debated for so long that Call of Duty, which has been kind of the center point of this argument, did a whole study within their own game where they secretly turned off skill-based matchmaking and then tracked all the data, and then they essentially published a 25-page long report on their findings, and the result is essentially that people don't play their game as much when they turn off skill-based matchmaking.
Yep. Now, I think it's actually better to describe it as a engagement-based matchmaking, because everything that they talked about was more about keeping people engaged with their game as long as possible and keeping them having fun. And like, you can't quantify fun, but there was like measurements that they had, like how long do people play? Are people quitting out of games? Like how often is it just a stomp on one team or another? Those are all things that they're measuring. And other than just that, but it's also they're tracking your ping. They even said, I believe at the beginning, that the most important thing that they consider is ping and getting you to a game as quickly as possible. And then it goes to your skill and are you in a party and all those other things. But at the end of the day, it really felt like what it was more about was keeping people engaged for as long as possible. Yeah.
And it's an interesting read. I didn't read through all of it. I read a bunch of it, but it's a lot of data and analysis, and they're essentially trying to kind of convey everything that they know. This is the most transparent they've been as a company regarding SBMM. Even though they've been transparent in the past, it's always been transparent with kind of like trust us type language. This feels like the most, here's our data, here's what we think it means. You check it out for yourself. It's interesting because, as you mentioned, they're trying to quantify fun, but it really is retention-based matchmaking. And as we know, there's plenty of things in life that people do a lot of that might not actually be fun. You could throw certain types of gambling into this. Is it really fun sitting in front of a slot machine for 10 hours a day in Las Vegas? Or is perhaps there a weird bit of addiction and other things going on there that kind of keys your brain into the dopamine and the serotonin and all that at just the right intervals? So it doesn't necessarily mean that the game is more fun, but it means it has higher retention. And as a business, Call of Duty, Activision is going to seek that higher retention because they're a mega company with one of the biggest IPs ever, and that's a much more important metric to them than us debating about whether or not it was more fun before they had SBMM or not.
Yeah. So it's such an interesting topic. I don't think Call of Duty's matchmaking system is perfect by any stretch. I think it needs improving. I think it's got lots of problems, and you can debate the specifics. But what was interesting about the article is that they showcase, like you said, when they turned off skill-based matchmaking, players, except for the very top player base, your top 10%, everyone else was more likely to leave their games. They're more likely, I think after 2 weeks, certain demographics or certain brackets within their system were 2% did not return to Call of Duty. I think that was the number, around 2%, which doesn't sound like a lot when you've got all these people. But when you have hundreds of thousands of people playing, 2% over just 2 weeks, while that is a very short amount of time, and maybe it could have been some external, maybe another game came out. It's hard to say exactly that was the reason.
Sure.
But that's a lot of people just leaving your game after a couple of weeks. And so the thing that they were really harping on in the game or in this article was that by having a looser matchmaking system or no matchmaking or no skill-based system, that people were leaving, and that at the end of the day causes a spiraling effect where more people leave, and then people get better, and the people that you're going against are just basically just goes down to the wire where everyone is just the best. Only the best people are playing. Only the best people are having fun, and everyone else just gets stomped, and so they just leave the game, and then you just don't have as many people in the game overall, which is something they're trying to avoid.
Yeah, and I think that's one of their strongest points, to be honest, because we've talked about this numerous times on the podcast, how there's a lot of games that are really hard to get into now that have been around for a while because you don't have that chaff, the newbie players in there anymore that are kind of making the game a little easier, more inviting to learn as a new player. And then you get into Rainbow Six and you're getting headshotted through walls that have, 3 holes in them, like throughout 3 different walls. And you just don't know. There's all these crazy angles. And you're like, oh, okay. Oh, I'll just try to learn this map next time. Oh, it's not going to rotate to this map next time. Okay, I'm just going to be thrown into a brand new map again and then just do that for weeks until you start figuring out the game. Like, there's not a lot of people that are going to stick around for that. And so COD has a pretty good point there. At the end of the day, you need people playing your game, invested in that game's economy, the DLC, buying the updates, whatever, to continue to support and build upon the game. It's unfortunate because we talked about it being the skill-based matchmaking being less fun for the top 10% because it throws them.
And that's basically what they admitted, is that engagement is less at top because it's you're right. It's just it sucks
and
for them.
Not to brag or anything, but I think for most of our YouTubing careers, we've been in the top 10% of most shooter games that we play. And that might make our experiences less fun. So I think our argument is certainly weighted on that side of the equation. And it sucks that there isn't a good solution for everyone, because it is ultimately what we said originally, which is that they're catering to the masses. And that is the smart thing to do as a business. You cater to the majority of your player base. You don't cater to the minority. Otherwise, you have a much smaller game at the end of the day. So I don't know what the perfect solution is, but the article,
even in the article, sorry to cut you off. Even in the article, they did a protection for like the bottom 25%. So like they restricted matchmaking for the bottom 25%, so that if you were within that bracket, you would face people that are your skill level, and then they just opened it up and made it looser for everyone else, right? Like, oh, let's protect the newbies so that and then everyone else is just kind of out there. When everyone else, their numbers still reflected all the data points that they had before, where more people were leaving their games. There were more blowouts. People were quitting sooner, and they were leaving the game entirely faster than if they just had a more restrictive matchmaking. Basically, and you can believe them. I know it's Call of Duty, and they have, some people will just not believe it because it comes from Activision, or who owns it now? Microsoft? Anyways.
Yeah.
There's so many companies. So people may not believe the stats, but from the sounds of it, they pretty clearly said that the more restrictive it was, the more likely that people would be engaged and having fun with their metrics in the long run.
Yeah. Well,
that was kind of continue.
Do you think the debate's over? I mean, this is kind of like the data laid out. They've made their argument. It seems hard to make a counter argument without a better suggestion, right? It's like, well, do this instead. Well, what else are we going to do instead? I don't have a better suggestion, and I haven't heard any better suggestions other than going back to the way it was before. But, from a business model, it's never going to happen.
Yeah, we have games like XDefiant, which apparently doesn't have a skill-based matchmaking, and I really like XDefiant. I think it's fun, but I've also heard from players who are maybe not as good, and it was a bit of a reality check that they joined these games and they're just getting absolutely slammed over and over and over again. And I don't know what the numbers are like anymore. I know that XDefiant isn't doing as well now because it's been out for a bit, and
it's free.
It's free, yeah. So it's like, if all those, it's basically Call of Duty, but for Ubisoft. And I know it's not exactly COD, and maybe that's the argument why people aren't playing it. Maybe it is doing really well. We don't have the numbers, so it's tough. Was it a successful experiment that skill-based matchmaking was, or having no SBMM in that game was successful? I don't know.
Yeah, I think if anything though, they've made it harder to argue against SBMM, which has been, they've been debating it for years and years at this point. And so this might actually cool off some of those debates to a degree and just be like, well, this is just the reality we're in now. And I guess people at the top just got to suck it up and try hard the whole time as opposed to kind of relaxing and having fun, or make your Smurf account where you can relax and have fun or something. But
yeah. Some people have said to have like 2 modes, like one be skill-based matchmaking, the other one just have no SBMM. It's like, well, that might work for a couple of weeks, but then if their data is right, that means that people might try it out for a while, but then they'll go back. Lower brackets will not have fun. They'll move back to the skill-based matchmaking, which then just condenses the pool of better players in the no skill-based match. So you just basically get this end result where it's just all good players.
It doesn't work unless everybody's forced into it, you know?
Right.
It's like insurance, right? The system doesn't work unless everybody pays into it.
Right. And then according to them, if everyone's forced into it, people are leaving the game. It's just condensing. The best players will stick around because they're the best. And then you run into the problem where matchmaking takes longer because there's less people playing now, and you've got host of issues. I don't really know what the alternative is, like you said.
Yeah. And it is interesting because SBMM really only affects these kind of tighter, more competitive designed games, where if you look at like Battlefield, people aren't really worried about it as much because it's such a massive open game that you're not going to get slammed by the top 1% player over and over and over again. You're just not going to see them for the next 10 minutes, you know, because it's such a massive game. You're going to have fights with other players. And so
it's also so much more sandboxy. Sorry, I keep interrupting you. I'm sorry. Continue.
No, it's all good. But I'm saying the SBMM argument is very specific to a specific type of game. And I feel like even more related in the shooter realm, but it definitely, I guess you could branch out to MOBAs and other stuff like that too. But yeah, it doesn't affect everything, but it is an interesting argument, and it's actually changed my opinion on it to a certain degree. So it's interesting, you know, even this many years into analyzing all the situations, I'm like, oh, well, like I don't love it, but the data doesn't lie.
It's like, it's like the data, like it's the data. It's like, how do you argue against it? It's hard. You could say that external forces were causing the data to change. I don't know.
And actually, Atif in chat just brought up a good point, was that Battlefield servers do empty out if one team is dominating. And yeah, BF4 had like those problems where I was tracking the stats, I think, for a video many years ago, where the odds of you joining a team that was getting absolutely trounced or losing were like, it was like 7 times out of 10 or even higher than that, because those were the spots that would open up in servers were the losing side. And then because it didn't switch teams, you would just be endlessly losing. So even those bigger games had their own issues because they didn't set up proper balancing mechanics. So
Battlefield 4 in particular had some problems with team balance. I remember that.
Yeah. So the big argument in Battlefield, instead of it being SBMM, was team balance, right? Or like, we don't want everybody on every team to have to be the same skill, but we do want the teams to kind of reflect an average of skills that makes it so one side isn't just stomping the other repeatedly over and over and over again.
Right.
Yeah. So
I do think it's and I don't think we should call it something different, but I do think it's not reading the article, it felt like it's not skill-based matchmaking. It is really just engagement or fun-based matchmaking, because as I said, they had like a wheel. It's ping, it's connecting to servers, it's have you played this map before recently? Are you like, what modes are you trying to do? It's taking all these in consideration, and skill is in there. Skill is a huge part of it, but it's these other things as well. And they're just, like you said, just trying to keep you engaged with the game.
Yeah, it could almost be framed as like aggravation-based matchmaking, right? They're like, instead of looking at it from a fun perspective, it's like, what are the things that actually make this more aggravating? Let's try and reduce that as much as possible using our matchmaking system. And that seems to be what they're aiming at, which is, it is interesting. I mean, yeah, I can't fault them for it, to be honest, but it's just unfortunate that that's the way we are in terms of just as people, you know, we're like, this is hard. I don't like it. I'll give up.
I just don't know what the alternative is for them.
I'll tell you what the alternative is, Matt. If you're getting owned in a game, you got to buy one of those new cheating keyboards, baby. You got to get one. Yeah.
When everyone says they just have a better keyboard, is that actually true now?
Well, you need the racer seat to go with it, but once you have the keyboard, so that there's new keyboards coming out. Razer came out with one. I think Wooting has one now, where it's kind of like macros, but I guess not macros. You can kind of jiggle and dodge in this crazy way. I haven't used it, so I don't know, but it's this big topic right now where, especially in games like Counter-Strike, apparently it's affecting Counter-Strike more than other games because it seems like it's almost designed for it, but
because they can like counter strafe easier or something.
Yeah, you can do this crazy jiggle side strafe, and apparently it can even mess with some of the netcode hitbox stuff and make it even, because when they coded the game, they didn't expect people to be able to alternate left, right, and at this insane rate, like you'd expect keyboard input to be at human rates.
Right.
But like these new keyboards are kind of breaking things. And yeah, so there's a debate over whether these keyboards are cheating, whether you're going to be able to use them in tournaments, and how much of an advantage it's giving people now, and how it's kind of breaking elements of the game. I think it's pretty interesting because we are at the point where we've got all this. We've had macros in keyboard software forever now, and people can create it, but then there's other things that can detect macros because it's like a very precise number of key presses and stuff, and systems can detect macros being run over and over again. So games with good anti-cheat software can detect macros, and they'll like slap you on the wrist for it. This seems a little bit different than that, and it's like, you remember back in the day when you were playing console with your little controller, and you bought that third-party controller that had the turbo button on it. And
I don't remember that. No,
you'd buy like a crummy third-party Xbox or whatever controller, and there'd be a turbo button, and you press turbo, and it makes you just shoot like way faster than everybody else. It's just like slamming A as fast as you possibly can. And so if you had that controller, you would have just a huge advantage over somebody else who's like giving themselves carpal tunnel, trying to shoot as fast as possible. This kind of feels like the keyboard version of that to some degree, but with movement mechanics and affecting some games much more than others. I don't think it would affect games like Battlefield as much because they have a kind of gradual acceleration to your movement in that game, which is, they call it that sluggishness, that sluggish feeling.
Inertia.
Yeah. So if you're spamming these keys, it's not really going to affect your character as much in Battlefield. I don't think. I haven't tested it. But in other games where the movement feels far more responsive, it's like a huge deal.
Okay. I guess I'd have to watch a video on how it works because I don't really understand it. But I mean, yeah, I can. If it's straight up just doing something that is humanly impossible, or it's giving you inputs that are not normally viable by any normal person, or even the best of the best, that does kind of feel like cheating a little bit.
Yeah, and I'm actually not 100% sure on how it works in terms of like if it is macro based, or if it's like you can get right on the edge of inputs and then get those inputs to kind of trigger really quickly based on the mechanics in which things are triggered. You can do a lot with these smart keyboards now, where like Wooting got well known because you could set your activation distance with the key press. So whatever level you felt comfortable at that key activating, you could set it from like a very like fractions of millimeters or whatever. And then you could get faster reaction times, right? So you could say, well, you know what? When I hit W, I want to move forward at a faster, I want to react to that faster than the guy next to me. So I can set my activation distance slower. So it'll take less time for my finger to get there when I press the key. Right.
But I don't have any issues with that because that's just you activating the key. You're not.
Yeah.
You're pressing the button and the thing is doing the thing. But if you're pressing a button and then it's doing multiple actions or something, I don't know how the keyboard works. So I'm speaking from a place of ignorance, but if it's doing more than what you're doing, if I just press one button, then all of a sudden my character just starts spazzing out, I think that would be kind of a problem.
Yeah. And I think it's getting into the realm of being able to put multiple inputs at the same time and getting the keyboard to like alternate between them quickly. So you're like, well, technically I'm pressing it, and the keyboard sort of deciding which. Yeah, it's getting into this gray world of what is and isn't acceptable for key inputs, and also it's getting into a realm of, hey, can we even track this and regulate it even if we decide it's not acceptable? Which the answer might be no.
Right.
So it's interesting because they've been looking for ways to give you advantages with your hardware forever. And this is just a new way to do it. It's like getting that little center point on your monitor. A lot of gaming monitors come with a little targeting reticle that you can turn on now, which you would use in something like Escape from Tarkov, which doesn't have the hipfire reticle. Right. And now you get a hipfire reticle. And
that's an advantage.
When I was talking to pro Tarkov players, they were like, oh yeah, everybody uses this. And I was like, oh, okay. Why don't we just have a hipfire reticle in the game if everybody's going to use the hardware's almost forcing the software to update, if that makes sense, to like change their design. Cause they're like, well, they've overridden the way we wanted people to play. So I guess we just have to update our game so that people aren't cheating with hardware.
Yep. I can't give any more because I haven't seen the actual keyboard, but I agree.
Yeah. So what have you been playing, man?
Marvel Rivals is having their current beta right now, the Overwatch clone third-person Marvel game, and I'm actually enjoying it. It reminds me of like early days of Overwatch where it's not super sweaty yet, and it's just a lot of fun to play as all of these cool superheroes or supervillains in a goofy, admittedly messy, but fun little arena. It's cool. I like it.
Enjoy the early days while they last.
Exactly, because it's already getting that. I've already had a couple of matches where I played ranked, and then you got people on your team like, what the hell? Get your act together. What are you doing? I'm like, bro, we're in bronze, please. Yeah. Like, come on. Like, it's gonna be okay, big man.
Who's the guy playing Iron Man? You don't know what you're doing, dude. Your power management is
They'll be like, hey, Spider-Man, you're not doing enough damage. We need you to switch, please. It's like, okay.
Who's the Spider-Man over here? Now, controversially, Matt, Robert Downy Jr. coming back as
he's coming back.
Dr. Doom.
Dr. Doom.
What do you think? Is that okay? Can you do that? I mean,
apparently you can.
He's the most recognizable character from all of Marvel, I would say. To a degree.
Hands down. He's the one that started it.
Yeah, Iron Man kind of kicked off the whole thing, and now and then they killed him. I mean, spoiler, sorry. And then it's been out for a while,
Huge. Oh, whoa, my bad.
I'm sorry. Yeah, Darth Vader's Luke Skywalker's dad.
No,
okay,
I think at this point it's such
been
a
long
cultural.
Enough.
It's part of like culture now. Like if you haven't seen it, then I hear you.
But coming back is like a super villain.
Well, my understanding, I don't know much about Dr. Doom.
Just about to watch it and I ruined it for him. Sorry, Tief.
I don't know much about Dr. Doom. I haven't read any comics, so I'm, very cursory. I'm a fan of Marvel, but
yeah,
my understanding is that because they're doing the whole multiverse thing is that, and this could have just been someone on my chat just spouting nonsense, is that his character will be a alternate version of Iron Man who wasn't able to figure out how to beat Thanos in another universe. And so he resorted to like magic and turned evil and he's been corrupted. And so if it's Iron Man, but who's been corrupted and is now Dr. Doom, like I could see that in a multiverse situation.
You can do anything with multiverse. Someone was quick to point out after that saying like, well, I guess all of these super moving moments don't matter at all.
It's why I don't like multiverse stuff.
Yeah. And also people started posting all the alternative options for Dr. Doom who would have been great. And you're just like, why did they need to bring Robert Downey
because
back?
It's him. He's him. He's the one.
I do love Robert Downey Jr. I just like it's just weird. Like, can you find anybody else? Other than the guy
really just comes down. I think it's because they're a little desperate. I don't think that Marvel's been doing as well with their movies. I don't know necessarily. I think a lot of their movies have been a little mid. I haven't seen many of them, but after all the Avenger Endgame I think people just kind of breathed out and they're like, all right, I'm good now.
Yeah.
We had our Marvel, we had our superheroes. It's time to move on and take a break. And Disney's like, all right, round 2, let's go. New characters. We're jumping in every movie every month. Let's rock and roll, baby. And we're like, no, I'm done for a bit.
I know. Disney was trying to ramp up Star Wars and start cashing those checks, and then they really pooped the bed on that one. And now that Star Wars money ain't rolling in quite as much as I think they're hoping it would. Yep. Disney's far from done. They're cutting deals and checks left, right, and center. So we'll see what happens with them next. But yeah, it does feel like they're kind of just grasping. They're like, no, Avengers. We need the Avengers back. We need.
I think
Avenger
that's
money.
why they're bringing him back. It's mainly money, and he's probably got a big check for it. I mean, the amount of money they're probably throwing at him is just astronomical.
I know. At that point, do you ever think about people with that level of wealth, and you're just like, what does money even mean to them at that point? I mean,
nothing. It's meaningless.
If you have hundreds of millions of dollars, and somebody's like, we'll pay you $50 million to do this movie or whatever, you're like, all right, like cool. Yeah, it seems like fun.
Why not?
Why not? Yeah.
Especially if he enjoys it.
God, it would be so much fun to be a diva, though. You ever think about that, where you're just like irate over small, weird things, like, the temperature in my trailer wasn't 72 degrees.
He doesn't give me that vibe, but I hear what you're saying.
It'd be fun,
You like to be basically an asshole? I mean, okay.
No. It's my fantasy. Okay, let me have my fantasy. I'm not a diva, but I want to be a rich
diva asshole. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I would be. I'm just saying I would like to be. Like, there's just a part of me that wishes I could be that.
Though Robert Downy Jr., he's quite the actor. Have you? Do you ever see the behind the scenes for Tropic Thunder, where he's going back and forth between him and Ben Stiller? Like, he's like in it, and you're like, damn, this is what acting is like. Like, it's really impressive. Like, I know it's a goofy movie, but seeing him go in and out of character and doing it for long stretches of time was fascinating. Yeah, it was really neat.
I'd recommend checking it out. Behind the scenes of Tropic Thunder, regardless, because I'm sure that was just an insane production.
Yeah,
I love all the actors in that. Even like Steve Coogan at the start, who's the director who gets blown up or whatever. He's
great movie.
Yeah, such a good one. What do you mean, you people?
So good.
Yeah, I don't think they could make it today. Or they could. I don't know. Maybe they couldn't, but. Yeah, so Marvel Rivals, not to sidetrack you there, but so you're liking it, and it's fun now. Not quite as sweaty as Overwatch potentially is.
Yeah. I played last playtest, which was fun. This one feels a little tighter. There's still some of the movement though. The fast moving characters are really fast. And I don't think the game can keep up with it. And so you'll see Spider-Man who will be like here, and they'll be like here. And it just teleports everywhere. Not because he's actually teleporting on his end, but because the game just can't keep up with it. And so you're just trying to like shoot this guy who's just flying around, sporadically. And it's so that's a little annoying at times. But they added in 2 new characters at the beginning of the playtest from last one. And so they got Venom, and there's one more who I'm blanking. I think it was 2. Venom and someone else, I think. And then they just recently added Thor and Jeff, who is a little shark dog, who is adorable.
Oh, do I know Jeff? I feel like
I don't know. I never knew about Jeff, but he's the cutest thing ever.
There's the space dog. I know the space dog that's like.
Well, he's not a dog. He's a shark,
but something. Yeah.
He's a shark who kind of walks around like a dog.
Okay.
He's a shark dog.
His name is Jeff.
His name is Jeff.
Did they run out of licensing money or something?
No, I think it's because he's adorable and the merchandise, and it's just super cute.
Fair enough. Every franchise needs its porg, It's Baby Yoda. God, I just realized that Star Wars, like, they leaned into the porgs, and then like, we don't have porgs anymore. Baby Yoda. Maybe. I think each generation of Star Wars is going to need their cute little things. They have the Ewoks, right? Yeah.
Even the upcoming Star Wars Outlaw game has a cute little companion.
Have you played it yet?
Have I played it?
Oh yeah, I think some people are getting early access to it. So
I was like, it comes out in August, I thought. like
Okay.
August
Well,
30th.
I was hearing this and people were playing it. I haven't played it yet. Yeah.
Gotcha.
I will say my interest in it is just kind of like, it looks
kind of a meh.
Yeah, well, it's not helped by the fact that my interest in the Star Wars IP is at an all-time low.
Dwindling.
Yeah, and then this game just kind of looks like your run-of-the-muck, open-world, Ubisoft-ish type experience.
Yeah, I think it'd be one thing that kind of excites me about it is that there's a bunch of different factions, all criminal factions, and you need to side with them, and who you decide with opens up potential quests, or they'll start hunting you if you get on their bad side. And I'm curious to see how that will impact the story and how those will like weave in and out. Like if you side with one, will things happen organically, or will it literally just be, I'll side with you guys for a while, now I'll side with you guys for a while, now I'll side. It's like,
yeah, I guarantee you it's going to be simple. They're not going to go Fable with it where you can become good or evil, and then the whole world's going to morph around you based on those decisions. Yeah,
I don't think it's going to be that extreme. But if they are able to weave in some cool story elements, depending on who you just, who you're siding with, and if they can pull it off, it's intriguing, but can they actually pull it off?
Yeah. What do you think about lightsabers changing color when you when you become evil? Good or evil?
What do you mean? That's a thing now? I thought it was the crystal or something that changed the color.
Have you not been keeping up with the latest Star Wars shows, Matt?
No, I haven't. I haven't.
Yeah, I don't know if you knew this, but if you're like, say, a good Jedi and you have like a blue lightsaber, although I guess it could be green or purple. I don't know what the rules are anymore. Ahsoka has yellowish lightsabers, but anyway, so if you're good and you got a blue saber, but then like you're feeling kind of like bad, you're like
feeling a little down bad,
you're a little angsty, and maybe you accidentally kill somebody who is a good person out of anger, an accidental anger kill. Yeah, exactly. Then as you become evil because you did that evil act, the universe knows when you do the evil thing, the Force knows, your lightsaber will go from blue to red as you are holding it. It will change color
as if it's a binary switch that you are now just all of a sudden evil. Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't that cool?
I mean, I can see why it would be cool on paper, but then if you look at it for even 2 seconds, that's silly.
Yeah. Atif is bringing up Jedi Survivor and being able to pick whatever lightsaber color you want. Atif, don't give me your Jedi. Jedi Survivor was like, let's just make it fun and let people have whatever color lightsaber they want and whatever. I don't know.
I don't know. Does the color actually matter other than... I thought it was just a color based off of the crystal.
Atif is saying it's been in Star Wars canon for a while. Interesting.
Oh.
I don't even know what is Star Wars canon
I don't know.
anymore.
I legitimately thought it was there's some sort of
you got
device
the
in there,
Kyber crystal.
That's, the Kuiper, those things.
In the Clone Wars, they go on like a spirit quest to these ice caves, and if you don't get out in time, you die in there or something. And you have to retrieve your Kyber crystal, and that crystal supposedly determines what your lightsaber looks like.
Right, that's
what
I thought.
Yeah. That's what I always thought too. And it seemed to line up with even the original trilogy canon where Darth is like, I see you've constructed a new lightsaber and it is green,
it's not like a mood ring or something.
Yeah.
It just changes. Today I'm feeling purple.
Yeah. So I don't know, man. Yeah. Cause then if like your Force vibe controls the color of your saber, then what vibe does Mace Windu have, who's got the only purple lightsaber in the galaxy? And why does nobody else have that? Nobody else can tap into that. And Yoda, the most badass Jedi of all time, is just a green. There's tons of greens out there. He should be a rainbow saber or something, You know what
I love about this discussion is we're not having an argument, but we're discussing fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
It's just fantasy. It's just made up stuff. Like this is all made up. That's it. So yeah.
I know. But it's that thing that we always get engaged in, which is like, if you're going to create a fantasy world, stick to your canon. But Star Wars
I
has been
agree.
around for so long, and it's
I
being
agree.
handled by so many people, and the people at the top just are giving everybody their creative freedom, right? And you're like, well, but okay, somebody's
Plot holes-
got to be the regulator at the top, being like, no, this is what you can and can't do.
Yeah, plot holes aren't fun. When you're really invested in a world and a plot hole shows up and you're like, wait a second, what about before? Like it really doesn't. It breaks the illusion that you're in a world that has rules. That's why I like Brandon Sanderson so much, is that his magic system is very like rock solid. He's got his rules and he sticks by it. And then when he uses those rules to do something cool, you're like, damn, that's so creative. But he doesn't like break, or if he breaks the rules, it's in a way that like
it's explained
progresses a character, or it's explained in a way where you're like, oh, we didn't actually know the full rules, but it doesn't completely like break the illusion of what they're trying to create. So I get why people wouldn't be down with that.
Is Brandon Sanderson the light bringer?
Stormlight Archive.
Stormlight. Okay. Yeah, gotcha. Yeah. My wife started reading that actually.
Oh,
per your recommendation. Nice. She's liking it so far.
Good.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. The I didn't know this was an option with audiobooks, but the Red Rising, at least the first trilogy, has the, what's it called, where they fully act out the book on audio, where it's like a play. She listened to that, and I listened to a little bit of it, and I was like, this is way better than what I experienced.
It's really impressive. Yeah. They're called graphic novels or graphic audio.
Yeah.
Graphic audio.
It's amazing. It's better than like a movie. It's incredible.
It's also very expensive.
Yeah. That's why I didn't know what it was. I saw the price and it was like $60 for a book or something.
So let me keep going if you,
no, that's why I didn't go for it. I didn't know what it was, and it was like $60, and I didn't quite know what I was going to be getting. I thought it was basically just different people doing the voices of different characters. I didn't realize that it was so much more beyond that, with like sound effects, and like if they're in a crowd, you'll hear the crowd. If they're in a big battle, you'll hear the battle in the background. Like,
it's awesome.
Yeah. So now I'm kind of like, man, I kind of want to go back and listen to some of this stuff again. And what's funny is she's waiting to read the newer Red Rising books because they're not fully converted to the graphic audio. And she's like, yeah, it's too good. I don't want to go back to like the boring way, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
so Stormlight graphic audio, they're long books. They're like 1,000 pages. The one book is $67. And I think this price has dropped too. It says regular price is $110. So they must be doing like a sale or something right now. Yeah. The entire set, which is 4 books, and that is $300. So but you're like you said, the way they describe it is a movie in your mind. Yeah. And it truly is. So instead of like when the book describes a door opens, or he opens the door, it won't actually say he opens the door. You'll just hear a door open, and then it will continue. It's like, oh.
And when they fight, there's
immersive.
like grunting and heaving and like, cries of pain and stuff. It's incredible. And I understand the price, because looking at the difficulty of producing something like that, where, okay, you factor in the cost of a movie. It's obviously cheaper than making a movie, but it's so much longer than a movie. It's
also niche.
So much longer. Yeah. Because some of those books, I think, like you're saying, 1,000 pages, that ends up being what, like 40 hours or something? Something insane. So you're like, okay, that's 40 hours of highly produced audio engineering and voice acting
of every character. Every character is a different voice actor.
Yeah. And they didn't get it on the first take, and they probably had to have recordings where both the actors were there at the same time, because you got to get all the timing down right. It doesn't work otherwise. Like, it's probably a lot of work to produce this. So I do get the price, but at the same time, $300 for audiobooks, man, it's a lot.
Well, for all 4, but yes.
Yeah, okay, yeah. But even for one, that's why I didn't go for $60 for the Red Rising ones, because I didn't know what it was. But now looking back, she checked it out at the library, and I was like, "Ooh, you're smart."
Yeah, no, and actually, that's where I would recommend it. That's where I got some of mine. It's just straight from the library. It's like, it's free, and I just now have it. It's like, it's great.
Yeah. So I'm thinking about that, man. Yeah, I might do some library checkouts for Stormlight. That would be cool.
It's good.
Oof. So, Stalker 2. Delayed
again, baby.
How many delays is this? 4?
Like 25, 4,
5?
something like that.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
I will, as I've said many a times before, I will play this game whenever it launches. If it's 3 or 4 years from now, I will still be there on launch day to play it.
Yep.
It is a shame that it's gotten delayed. The company's been through a lot. They're very much tied to the war happening in Ukraine right now and had to move their whole studio because of it. But it's being delayed till November 20th, which is not too far. It's not that far away.
No. I just hope it turns out well. I'm not expecting the game to be a 10 out of 10. I think it's going to probably be pretty jank and have problems and issues
like
here and there.
Original.
But
yeah.
But as long as it has like a great foundation and as long as it's not super buggy, I'm stoked. I'm hoping for the best.
Yeah.
Take all the time. It really, like, who cares? Like, yeah, it sucks to have a game delayed, but what's the alternative? It releases and it sucks. Like,
yeah.
It's not like it's getting worse.
And I don't want them to do the early access thing and then we get to play kind of the mediocre version now and then a better version later. It's like I'm holding off on Hades 2 because of that. I want to play everything that the game has to offer, and I know I'm probably only going to be addicted to it once, right? I'm not going to come back. So I want to wait until it's done. So I'm glad they're not doing early access. And yeah, I want it to perform well because they showed off gameplay at different times and we saw a lot of frame chunking and stuff. And it seemed like they had a lot of optimization work to do. So if that's what they're taking their time for to make this amazing looking game perform well, then great. What's cool about this, what's so cool about Stalker is that Stalker is a vibe. Like you could explain it to somebody and they go, oh, it's kind of like Tarkov, or it's kind of like Metro or something, which all both games borrowed heavily from Stalker, but the Stalker vibe very much is unique. Despite these other franchises trying to copy it as closely as possible, they still haven't quite captured what Stalker is, and Stalker 2 looks like it's got that vibe, like that just creepy, supernatural, Chernobyl exclusion zone, weird Russian stuff going on. Like it just fun. Yeah.
I gotta say, I like their attitude with the delay. They posted a little video that was basically announcing over like an intercom or something out in the wild where you could hear it. And the main character is just like, are you kidding me? Another delay, basically to that extent, you know? And he looks at his little pad and it shows like, you know, when it's getting delayed to. So it's nice that they have a bit of sense of humor about it, because I'm sure they also realize that this is, you know, they've had a lot of delays, but it's not like they're making the game worse. It's, you know, it's not like waiting is going to make the game worse.
No. It's a good thing, and I do think any company that takes what could be a very boring, annoying press announcement and turns it into something with a little more tongue-in-cheek humor is it's good, and I did appreciate them for delivering it in that way. It very much softened the blow, I feel.
The graphics seem to be ping-ponging all over the place, though, because when they originally showed it off a couple years ago, and we saw like that gym scene where a guy like steps on a board and it like divots down a little bit, it bends, and the lighting's amazing. You're like, oh my god, this game looks next gen. Then there was another trailer like 8 months ago. Graphics looked okay. Like they looked like, it was like, oh, this is more of kind of what I would have expect. And then the trailer that we just saw for the announcement that it was being delayed, I was like, damn, these environments look great. So I don't even know what the game's going to look like anymore. I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know either. And I think that's probably what they're trying to dial in, because the game clearly can look amazing. We just don't know if it's going to run amazingly well when it looks amazing. So that's probably just what they're trying to optimize right now. It's Unreal Engine 5, and if Unreal Engine 5 is not set up perfectly, you're like, here's 40 FPS. Enjoy.
Ah, damn.
Yeah. There's been kind of a little bit of industry talk about UE5 very much relying on like service features like DLSS and FSR to upscale because of how intense some of the back-end technology is. Like, if you're committing to things like Neonite and Lumen and these new lighting and rendering engines, it's like, okay, we're just going to dedicate this percentage of our performance to that new feature. So you better use the heck out of that feature because it's just going to have this constant overhead now. And so it makes it a little trickier for devs to sometimes work with it, where they're like, oh, we had more optimization room before because we could just kind of limit how much we use this expensive thing. And now they're saying,
and now it's either on or off.
To an extent. Yeah. Like once you have Nanite enabled, your performance in most cases isn't going to fluctuate that much, whether you have 1,000 polygons on screen or 1,000,000 polygons on screen, which is impressive from a tech level, but also they're sort of reserving that overhead from the start, whether you're using it or not. So it makes it a tricky engine to optimize. You just have to learn a lot more systems. It can be done, but it's just more learning, more stuff.
Well, hopefully when the new graphic cards comes out and further along we get, DLSS will become more just standard on all cards.
I think everybody has it now, don't they? You either have DLSS or FSR.
No, DLSS 3.
Yeah, DLSS 3 is reserved.
That's the big thing, because like, you got DLSS, but then you go and you see the performance upgrade from a 3080 Ti to a 4090, and it's with DLSS 3, it is night and day, where you're getting like 180 FPS, and I'm over here struggling to hit 90, right? It's 90's fine, 90's great, it works, but it ain't 180.
Yeah. One feature click and it's like doubling your FPS.
Yeah.
And people are like, yeah, but it adds input delay. You're like, what, 0.00, like nothing? It does. It barely adds anything.
Amazing.
Yeah. Totally worth the upgrade. They announced DLSS was coming out for Star Citizen, and I was like, yeah. And they're like, DLSS 2. And I was like, oh, okay. So nothing's going to change. Okay, cool.
Right.
Yeah. So still waiting on that 3. I'll send you some videos. You can watch my YouTube videos if you want to see how cool it looks, Matt.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Peasant.
You peasant. The 5000 series is coming out soonish. Well, actually, it might have just been delayed, which I've read rumors that it might get pushed back into 2025. It was supposed to come out. People were expecting it end of this year, but yeah. So in terms of price, not that I expect people out there to go run out and buy a 5000 series, but it usually comes with a price drop for the 4000 series.
Sometimes.
DLSS 3 more attainable.
Yeah. Sometimes with the price drop.
Sometimes. I know you like your secondhand GPU markets, Matt.
I don't touch that stuff. No, thanks.
How come you don't have a PC sponsorship and you don't get your like? Come on, man.
I'm just bad at all that stuff. Just bad at networking, bad at making money, apparently.
Should start one. Matimia's PCs, you know.
Like yeah, there you go.
There you go.
Matimia's PCs.
I like it. I'd go to that website. The lols. Well, I've been I don't know. Have you watched anything? I watched a movie called Everyone But You. I was desperate for a rom-com.
Okay.
And it was mediocre, man. I watched it because it had Glenn Powell in it, who's like this rising star that we've been talking about. I was like, let's watch Glenn Powell. He's the pilot in Top Gun 2, and
you just love this man. Yeah, I know this guy. Everyone Everyone But You, that was the movie that like blew up and made him like a star. Him and Sydney Sweeney? Yeah.
So I mean, she's smoking hot.
I mean, both of them are pretty smoking hot. Let's be real. The
movie was basically they go to Australia and they're on the beach most of the time, so they're all in like bikinis and whatever.
Yeah,
and so
just looking like a smoke show.
Yeah, visually the movie was just like incredible, but from a dialogue standpoint, and I mean, God, they have Sydney Sweeney singing at this one part, and she can't carry a tune. It's so much of that movie is like hardcore cringe, where I'm just like, some of it's intentional cringe, but yeah. Anyway, I enjoyed it, but it was
rough.
It was a cringe fest, man.
Yeah,
yeah.
I know that I think it did really well at the box office, but that may have just been because like they were just really two attractive people that are charismatic. It got 87% on user on Rotten Tomatoes. So maybe it's just you.
I think people are desperate for a passable rom-com these days.
Could be.
It's like I enjoyed myself
it made
watching it.
$220 million in the box office for a rom-com, bro.
Yeah.
Like that is insanity.
Yeah, that's actually amazing, especially when you consider that like people are like, here's our $200 million production cost movie, and then it gets like, I mean, that beats Mad Max, right? You know, in the box office, and you're like, oof, the production costs.
Actually, it does. I think it does beat them.
Yeah, it's unfortunate to hear, but I do want the rom-com genre to come back. It's kind of my guilty pleasure genre, and
I like rom-coms too. Guilty pleasure is the best way to describe it.
Yeah, and some of them can be incredible. Like some rom-coms are really good, really well written, really funny, and other ones are just kind of just running the standard
Passable.
formula. And I would run this one into that category, just with very attractive people. And I'd say, like, literally, there's tons of jokes in the movie, and less than 50% of them land. Like, you're just like, oof, that was supposed to be funny. That was supposed to be funny, but nope, not funny. Yeah.
I felt that one.
Yeah. And
I hear you.
Yeah, other than that, I've been catching up on House of Dagrins, and it's good.
What did you call it?
Dagrins.
Dagrins.
Yeah. No, dragons. Good.
I haven't seen the most recent episode.
Okay, I'm not caught up either. I'm still on season 1, and it's a slow burn. Season 1.
It's going to be a slow burn the entire time.
Okay.
But I love House of Dragons. People say like nothing happens. I'm like, what do you mean nothing happens? All of these things are happening, especially in the background and all the politicking, and I love it. I love it. I like
and
action.
That incest, baby. Whew. Yeah, I was.
That's what we're into.
Original Game of Thrones leads off, I think, in the first episode with incest, and this one is kind of gets you going.
Oh yes, with James. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It almost becomes so standard by the end. You're like, oh yeah, right, they're brother and sister. I forgot. You just get used to it. And then this one's like, let's hit you with
it's
some
medieval,
of that.
Baby. That's just what happened back then, even though it's a fantasy.
Well, I think, even in like medieval times, they're marrying your cousin and stuff was pretty common. So,
it's because they wanted to keep their line pure,
baby, little special, and pure.
And they were definitely special.
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying House of the Dragon, but I think that's because I like character dramas where it's dialogue and interesting things are happening for the characters, and I don't care about action much anymore. I like that said, there are scenes and there's action in the show that are just probably some of the best action in television history. Like they are amazing, but that's not why I'm watching the show, because a lot of time action just is like, oh, I'm punching you, I'm sword fighting, and there's nothing going on.
If you're not invested in the characters, then you're not invested in the action, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so many just rely on, okay, nothing's really been going on for a long time. Let's just start throwing action at the audience because, pretty colors and, violence. But so I'm really enjoying it, but I could also see why people would find it to be slow, because if you're not into that, it's a lot of politics.
I do like it. I would say it's a little slow for my taste.
That's fair.
And that's more with certain episodes where you're like, well, what happened that episode? It was just kind of a lot of chatting about stuff and not much else. But it is fun. It's building. It's like a slow build, and I feel it. I'm excited for the next episode, so that's good.
I haven't been watching much lately. I did play, getting back to games, I did play the Ready or Not DLC, and it was good. I think it was like $10, and if you have a friend who owns it, you don't even have to pay for it. You can just play with them. And they added in, I think, 3 new maps. Man, the attention to detail on their maps is freaking wild. They have so many unique assets, and every single map is different in the sense of the art that they have in it. Like they've got murals and like actual artwork in the game where you're like, damn, that is just incredible to look at. And then everything around it is unique. It's an experience. It's still Ready or Not. So either you like Ready or Not or you don't. But I was impressed. It was fun. They added in some unique missions.
That's cool. There's the community around Ready or Not really likes that game because of just kind of the authentic feeling of it and how they care about weird little things, like just opening a door is like a huge aspect of the combat in that game. Where it's like, how do you move from this side of the door to that side of the door? There's a whole mini game and process, and anything can happen there. And so it's cool how they can take something that is relatively trivial in most games and it becomes like its own thing. And kind of respects the rules of realistic combat, which a lot of people like about it too, and makes it fun at the same time, which is hard to do.
Yep. The AI is still a little janky at times. There will be moments where you've got like 5 guys staring at one dude. You're peppering him. You're throwing like you're hitting with bean bags. You're like, drop the weapon. And he's just like, no. You're just like, just drop it. What do you mean? Like so there's stuff like that can be a little off-putting, but it's the DLC is fun. I enjoyed it.
Do they have voice comms in the game where you can yell like stop resisting and then like the NPC will like stop resisting in the game?
I don't know if you might be able to set it up that way, but I don't.
That'd be kind of cool.
That would be really cool if you could, especially if you could like do verbal commands, because if you play solo, you can basically command your entire squad, which takes some practice, and you have to like go through, like hit 1113, and then that will do your squad will go do an action. It'd be cool if you could just be like, cover this door, cover that door.
Yeah.
And with verbal commands.
I bet you with the kind of the learning language models now, a lot of those are actually not as computer intensive as you might think. You can actually run them locally in the background. And so I bet you we're going to start seeing a lot more games that could take audio input commands and the NPCs will react in almost a near real time response to it. That would be super cool. I bet you that's going to start coming around a lot in the next 5 years, is NPCs that feel far more responsive with that. Instead of having your dialogue tree or you're pressing 1 and 3 and then 3
you
to
could
get
just
to
say
the option. Yeah, you're like, go in that door over there, or you two go in that door, or red squad or whatever, or the game having the intelligence to know what you mean, even though there's 20 different ways to say the same thing, it'll figure out what you want. That's going to be cool. I look forward to that.
Agreed. I also played Nobody Wants to Die. Do you ever heard about that title?
No, but I agree.
Nobody Wants to Die. So it's a noir game, and you play as a detective in the future where they have discovered a way for people to become immortal, where death is no longer an issue. Well, at least that's what they want you to believe. And it's super dystopian, where people live in like cities where there's no sunlight, and the buildings just go up and up and up, and like I want to die already thinking about it. They've got flying cars, but it's all kind of like 1960s kind of vibe to it.
I think I have seen this game. Yeah. I want to look up a picture. You liking it?
Well, I beat it in 5-6 hours. So it didn't really take me that long. It's $20, $25, something like that. So it was relatively cheap for how good of the game. It looks fantastic. And while the gameplay gets a bit repetitive,
charge so little for such a good looking game, man.
I know. That was one thing I was surprised by too. Yeah. Probably because of its length, which I think, based off of that price and how short it was, I thought $20 was the perfect amount, because the world that they created is really interesting. I don't want to get into details about how the whole immortality thing works, because then we would get into spoilers, but it sets up a premise. And this is what I love about some shows and media and whatever. They set up a premise and then they expand upon it. Like, if we have this idea of how something works, what would the implications of society be around that? How would people, and it does a really good job, I felt, of extrapolating and fleshing out the world.
Give me an example. What's weird about this is, like, what's changed?
So basically, the way that people are immortal, right? They monetize it. So I don't want to. I don't want to get into the spoilers of it, but they monetize it in a way where it benefits obviously the wealthy, and poor people they get the shaft. They get yeah. I don't want to say anymore because it's mega spoilers.
Gotcha.
But it's just,
I like that. That's very dystopian and very much lines up with all the lesser qualities of humanity, shall we say.
Yep.
That's cool.
So if you're looking for a fun little noir story, it's one and done. I mean, there is some replayability in the sense that there's like different endings, slightly different endings and different dialogue options throughout it. But yeah, great little experience for like $25.
Cool. I got respect for a studio that's willing to risk a game, like making a game like that, where they're like, well, if this doesn't become kind of a viral hit, we're done for, like, it's got to go. But yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
It's cool.
There we go. I think it's doing pretty well. No, I don't want to see reviews.
Yeah, no, it's got very good reviews on Steam right now.
Very positive, 1,200. So yeah, it seems to be all right.
It's cool, man.
Yup.
So Matt, I got a question for you.
Sure.
Say you're, top 5, top 10 Formula One driver in the world, right?
Yes, level cap.
You're an incredible driver, top of your game, racing for one of the best teams in the world.
Yeah.
You started this race in Belgium, and you weren't favored to win. You weren't even starting in the top cars. Your odds of winning this race, you were just trying to place as well as you possibly could. But really, this race was never going to be your race. But you go out there, you race your heart out, you make a crazy call where your team in the pit is like, hey, Matt, you got to come back in. You got to change out your tires. Your tires are worn out, and there's like 20 something more laps to go. There's no way you're going to make it. And you go, I'm staying out.
I'm staying out.
No, Matt, you're crazy.
This is a movie.
This is insanity. You can't do that. And then you stay out, and you stay in front the entire time, and nobody can catch up to you because you and you alone, with all those guys back in the pit with their supercomputers doing all their data crunching, said you were wrong, but you were right with your call, and you stayed in front, and you won that race.
Wow.
And then
you crashed.
They weighed the car after the race, and it was 1.5 kilograms underweight, and they disqualified you.
Oh no!
Based on your team's engineers screwing up with a little bit of math.
Oh no!
That what happened this weekend. Oh, such a good race, Matt. Such a good race. And 2 hours after the podium ceremony, the news came in that they weighed the car, and it was just underweight, and they screwed up. Yeah,
that's
1.5 kilograms is like, I think it's around 3 pounds or something. For
that's
a whole car.
Very minimal.
An entire car, about 3 pounds underweight. And I mean, they got hard rules on that.
A person's weight would literally change that.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
no,
if he took a dump before this, before he.
Yeah, the amount you would sweat during a race would probably be that amount. That was tough to watch because it was kind of an amazing moment for this guy, and then you're like, for the war. Yeah. So that's my little F1 news for the podcast. I normally save it for the post-podcast session, but I wanted everybody to know it's getting spicy. And that was the last race before they take their summer break. They take a little intermission for the season and then come back. And so
bit of a downer.
Yeah, that racer's just he's gonna
stew.
Think about that one for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, entertaining.
I'm sure it was. It's gonna be in a movie. I'm staying in.
Yeah.
I'm not coming out.
Well, I might be in a movie soon, man. I went to
what?
Yeah, documentary.
You a movie star now?
Kind of. I mean, get your autographs while you can.
All right.
No, I went to the Wrexham, the women's Wrexham game in Portland.
Okay.
So
were you in the crowd, the audience?
I was in the crowd, and I think it's going to be in the documentary. So I'm like, yeah, put me over here.
Yeah, look at me.
I'm
famous.
Yeah. No, it was fun. It was a good
Nice.
game. Cool to see. Women's sports, soccer's the sport, man. I think for women's sports, it's doing well. It's fun to watch.
I was reading the comments, which I should, you should never do on YouTube. And someone was like, "Stop calling it soccer. It's football." It's like, okay, I mean, all right, sorry.
Someone was really upset that I called. I can't even remember the name of the game, the Black Hawk Down game, Chinese Battlefield. They're like, that's racist. What are you talking about? Made by a Chinese company, and it's a knockoff. And we all, anyway.
I am excited. It's around the corner, August 6th, I believe. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. That's not too far. About a week from the recording date. So yeah, we'll be playing this, baby.
Baby.
I'm excited for it.
Yeah, we got some big games coming out. It's not out, but there's that. There's the Helldivers 2 update they're adding in new enemies and higher difficulty. They're going to 10. Super Helldiver. I don't know what the actual difficulty is called, but
can they dial it up to 11 after that? That's going to be crazy.
They could. Yeah. They just might. Still
I might even play the
faction.
Game. It's getting so exciting. I might even play it.
Yeah. Still no talk of the brand new faction, which I'm assuming is in the works, but I'll take a big update.
Yeah. Well, what's cool about this one is I think everybody's coming back for all the updates. I mean, most people are anyway. And so they're kind of proving the whole system wrong of that you need this live service game. It's like, what if you just make a really great game that everybody wants to come back to when we update it? That also works.
That also, who would have thought? Who would have thunk it?
Yeah. That's cool. A lot of stuff to look forward to. Any other topics you want to hit?
Well, I mean, so I've been over those last 2 months, I've been reading this book, which has been the biggest snooze, and I forced myself to read it, which is a mistake. And it's finally over, bro. I'm not even gonna say it because it's spoilery. So I'm not even gonna tell you what book it is, but there is a villain who is in the book for both 3 books and the 4 books before that.
Sorry. So you're reading a book that's part of a series?
It's part of a series. Yeah. This is the final book.
Okay.
It's finally over. And there's no resolution to the villain. Who does that? Who does that, Level Cap?
That is insanity.
It was so unsatisfying. I'm like, oh, cool. And then it's just over. It was basically a bunch of fan service throughout. Like it basically connects these other series together. You're like, oh, that's how in the other series that the building that they were in. Oh, that's cool. But nothing like interesting happens in the story to make it like a reason. It's just like, I'm going to put this in here. Oh my God. I'm so glad it's over. The moral of the story is I've moved on to actually good literature.
Yeah.
I'm reading a book called The Will of the Many, which I've heard nothing but good things.
Outweighs the needs of the few, right?
Yes.
I don't know. What's the phrase? Something like
it
that.
Is a very dystopian, of course. I love my dystopian stuff. Science fiction fantasy. And God, the premise, the first paragraph was so much more interesting than like the entire book I just read. So I'm all in. I'm already 100 pages in after like 2 days. So I'm ready to rock. I'm excited to dive in deeper.
Will of the Many gets a recommendation from Matt.
So far. Who knows if it'll be bad? Yeah, but
I know there's so many series that start off great and then like 5 episodes in or something, you're like, what is happening? This is going to hell.
Yep. I know that all too well.
Yeah, you remember Altered Carbon? You remember that one? They made like a second season to that. I
watched part of that second season.
Yeah.
And boy, because it was starting to dwindle a bit at the end of season 1. Like really cool premise. And then it started to like, we don't know what we're really doing. We're spinning our wheels a bit.
Well,
and
let's
then
fight
season
with
2 came
samurai
around.
swords. And you're like, what about all the rules you established for everything? They're like, I don't know, fight with samurai swords. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Then season 2 came around and was like, this is not very good. So I stopped watching it.
Yeah, which is a shame because they don't often make sci-fi shows with such bizarre premises that require a lot of CGI and a lot of world crafting. You're like, man, if you're going to put that much time into it, maybe have a better backstory, better characters, better stuff. But yeah, I guess that was maybe based on some books or something. And
I think it was.
Yeah, so they're just like, we got to stay faithful to the literature or something.
Mm-hmm.
Which they totally did for the Witcher series too.
Netflix is great about that, aren't they?
They're super cool. They're super cool. They totally didn't blow that one up either.
They had such a great franchise on their hands. They're like, what if we just dropped the ball?
The best, honestly. I mean, the first and second season of they're good, man. Like very, very watchable. And I'm not a hardcore guy that's sticking to the rules of whatever the books or the games did, but I very much enjoyed the first two.
I never watched season 3.
I did watch it. It was enjoyable, but I also don't know what the actual narrative was supposed to be.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Well, shall I save the Star Citizen news for post podcast? I think
sure.
We'll keep it post.
Yeah.
Sorry guys, if you guys want that hot and juicy Star Citizen news, or lack of rather, it is coming post podcast. If you guys want to support the podcast, check out our Patreon. It is in the video description. There's been a lot more people showing up lately, higher views on the podcast. I know you're coming by because you like that Matimio Widow's Peak. You keep coming back for it. You're like, baby. Whenever I'm striving for things to say, I'm like, insult Matimio. There we go.
Just make fun of Matt's hairline. Thanks, Levelcat.
Yeah, Matthew in chat is wondering if you missed the F1 talk. You did, but we can talk about it more post podcast. Once again, thanks for watching, everybody, and here's some very helpful advice from Matimio.
My helpful advice is stop caring what other people say about your hairline. It's beautiful, and you're beautiful the way you are.
I like your hairline, Matt, and I like your beard too. I mean,
what's wrong with my beard? What?
No, I'm saying I like it too. I was gonna insult pre-beard Matimio, you know? Okay. I look back on that Matimio and I'm like, who even were you? You hadn't fully discovered yourself, you know, and
I haven't evolved into my final form yet.
Yeah, you're the Charizard of what you used to be.
All right, let's end the podcast.
All right. Thanks for listening or watching, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Peace out.
Bye.